Hi, I'm Bill1911, and today we're going to talk about a topic that's very important to me. We're going to be talking about gun safety. Now, what's in front of me looks like a gun, but what it actually is a dummy. It's nothing more than a great big chunk of aluminum that's shaped like a gun. But it's going to be useful for demonstrating certain things when it comes to this particular safety issue. A gun is nothing more than a small handheld machine. It's designed to launch a projectile at high velocity. Now, sometimes we don't think of a gun as a machine. Sometimes we think of it as an object of evil or an object of something terrible. But realistically, it's not the gun. It's the guy that pulls the trigger that's the problem. And if we fail to view it that way, we take the responsibility off of the person and put it instead onto an object. So one of the things we need to talk about is that there is no such thing as an accidental shooting. There are unintentional shootings, but not accidental. Let's talk about why. Before anyone can be shot, there are several steps that have to be taken, and these are cognitive, they are deliberate, they are not accidental. First, someone has to pick the gun up. Second, they have to put ammunition into the gun, and that's deliberate, that's not an accident. Third, they have to point the gun at a person, and last, they have to make the decision whether they are going to pull the trigger or not. So let's keep that in mind, that safety is also not an accident. Now I'm going to tell you what those 3 gun safety rules are. Number 1, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. In a moment, we'll define what a safe direction is. 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And 3, always keep the gun unloaded until you're ready to use it. And again, we will define what we mean by use the gun in just a moment. So, let's go back and define what a safe direction is. A safe direction is defined as any direction where if the gun should unintentionally discharge, the bullet is not going to hit anyone or anything like pets or things like that. We also need to always remember to keep ourselves included in what a safe direction is. For example, this is not a safe direction. This is not a safe direction. And this is not a safe direction. Pointing directly at someone is not a safe direction. So, what does that mean? It means that as anyone else comes around us, the definition of a safe direction can change. It's not static. It's always something that you have to be continuously aware of your surroundings and where things are. Generally speaking, the 2 safest directions are up and down. Now there are cautions to this. Down can be a problem because if you're on top of a hard surface like a concrete floor, then what can happen is the bullet can bounce. That's a big problem. We don't want that to happen. So up, we always think of up as, well, up's bad because what goes up must come down. That is true. Bullets don't defy physics. However, if you're pointed straight up with a gun, the bullet goes up, reaches its apex, stops, and then starts to fall again. On the way down, that bullet will never exceed approximately 179 miles an hour. That's about as fast as it's going to get. Now, if you're pointing up but at an angle, the forward velocity of the bullet does not slow down enough to take lethality out of it. So that's not something that we want to do. So a safe direction, again, it progresses with what we're doing. It always changes. So let's move on to rule number 2. When you pick up a gun, You always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. It's almost an instinct that when you pick up a gun, you stick your finger in here on the trigger, and that is a problem. What happens if you have a muscle jerk? It's possible you could shoot the gun unintentionally. So we keep our finger outside of this trigger guard and off of that trigger at all times until we are ready to shoot the gun. It's pretty self-explanatory. While we're doing this, we are also being continuously aware of our surroundings and using that first rule. Always keep the gun in the safe direction. Number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Rule number 3, always keep the gun unloaded until you're ready to use it. Now, what do we mean by use the gun? What we mean is when you have 100% control of that gun, it is not okay to load the gun and then put it on the table and walk away and do something else. That's not okay. Someone else could pick up that loaded gun, be unaware of it, and discharge the gun. That's not something we want to happen. So we keep the gun unloaded until we have 100% control of it when we're at the gun range shooting. Or if you have a concealed carry permit, when it's in your holster. When you've got it on your person, you have 100% control of it. Other than that, keep the gun unloaded at all times. So those are our 3 gun safety rules. And I encourage you to always use those rules. Always keep them in your mind. They're simple for a reason, because we want you to use them. One of the things that we haven't touched on yet is mechanical safeties that are physically on the gun that you engage. Now, they're a wonderful thing. We need to use them, yes, but we cannot rely on them exclusively. Just because you have the safety catch turned on your gun does not mean it's okay to start ignoring the first rule and start waving your gun around. You still need to engage that first gun safety rule. Always point the gun in a safe direction. There's a question that I've heard many times. What would happen if I dropped my gun? Would it go off? Well, that's a pretty good question. Most modern firearms manufacturers have put in integral safety devices that pretty much make it impossible for the gun to do that. Now, that's assuming that the gun is in correct mechanical order. This small button right here is the firing pin. This bar that comes up over the top of it is called a transfer bar. The transfer bar is there so that when the hammer is released, it hits that transfer bar, and that's what actually pushes the firing pin forward. If you do not hold the trigger back the whole time, that transfer bar retracts out of the way and the hammer can't hit the firing pin, so the gun won't go off. Glocks are a little different in the way they do their safety, but it has the same effect. This is a double trigger. We can depress that double trigger, and when it's all the way back, it allows us to pull the trigger back on the gun. If that trigger is not, that second trigger is not pressed, then you won't have the gun fire. It works the same way as the transfer bar. It doesn't allow you to fire the gun, so it won't go off if you drop it. The next thing we need to talk about is a little bit about ammunition. Now, really, it's about making sure that you use the correct ammunition in your gun. There are certain kinds of ammunition that produce a lot more pressure than other types of ammunition. And because of that, it makes it possible to put the wrong type of ammunition into a gun and possibly even make it blow up. We'll give you an example of this in just a moment. There are a number of 9mm rounds that are produced. There's 9mm, 9mm plus P, 9mm plus P plus, 9mm high vel or high velocity, super vel. There's also 9mm Corbon, which is used by the military and law enforcement. This gun is designed for the standard 9mm ammunition. That's what we want to put in it. If we put the very high pressure ammunition in this gun, it's entirely possible for the gun to literally explode in your hand. That would be a problem. It's also possible for the slide to come all the way back, leave the gun, and hit you in the head, potentially being lethal. So we don't want that. So remember, always use the correct ammunition that your gun is rated for. If you like what you saw, if this video has been helpful and informative to you, don't forget, hit the like button up above and make sure you subscribe down below. And by all means, come and visit us at askbill1911.com.